North Carolina today, the U.S. Supreme Court will hear arguments in a controversial voting rights case. Congressional maps tossed out by state courts are now under review, and the outcome of this case may go well beyond just North Carolina, and it could impact how much power state legislatures have to manage federal elections. So this argument is whether the term legislature means the state's government as a whole or just the elected lawmakers in each state's state house.
Ultimately, the state Supreme Court of North Carolina agreed with us and redrew those lines so that the lines would be fair to all voters.
The state courts have been given authority there to weigh in on state elections and on state redistricting, but not on federal redistricting.
Opponents of Moore versus Harper and different voting groups will hold a press conference today at 10 a.m. outside of Asheville City Hall.